Hi, Diane.
Sorry, I had trouble getting in.
I know, I don't understand what happened. I had set this up and sent out the link, and then when I tried to start the meeting, it didn't start with the same link. I don't understand it.
Well, hey, computers,
Yeah,
such is life, right?
well, I think it has something to do with the fact that this is the 7th Zoom I've been on today.
Yeah, well, I could see where that would be a problem. I thought it was because I thought it was me. I'm glad you're going to take the hit for this because I just got back from Connecticut
Ah,
to seeing my dad. So Father's Day. I don't know how many more I'm going to have with him.
oh yeah,
102.
102. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it was important that I got there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But look at all these young faces here. All these young, handsome men. I kind of like this meeting. This is looking good.
Diana, you're in my will.
I am, huh?
But Stuart, I think isn't this meeting scheduled for June 28th?
Yeah.
No, if you look in the Rockridge News, it says the next land use committee meeting will be held on Monday, June 21st.
Wow.
Yeah. I missed that.
It would have been the 28th, except that would be too late for the Rockridge News
All right.
because they've changed the publication schedule. So you got to get stuff in earlier. So I had to, that's why I switched it from Wednesdays to Mondays, was to make it a little bit earlier. But this month, that would have made it the 30th, but it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
Actually,
Right.
I take that back. If I'd been on the 4th Wednesday, it would be the 23rd, and that would have been okay. It's hard to get it, if you try and set it for any particular, like the 4th Thursday, the 4th Wednesday, or whatever, it always sometime along the way, it won't work right. And this was a month that didn't work right on the 4th Monday.
Stu, I just want to point out that on the email that you sent out, it said June 28th. I think that might be the source of confusion.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
It did.
Oh, I know why, because that email was sent out using just the standard dates, basically saying it's always happening on the 4th Monday. So it said, oh, it's the 28th, but yeah, I didn't read it through before I sent it out. So my apologies.
This is your 7th Zoom meeting?
Yeah.
No apologies necessary. Not to me, anyway.
I think
Leonora,
David wanted to know if
how
it.
are you?
What?
You're looking gorgeous.
Well,
Look at that smile. I mean, come on, lady. You know.
it's been a long day for me too. This is like my 4th Zoom meeting. But
Well,
Stu, David Garcia wanted to know if the meeting was on. Did you respond to him?
I did, but he was thinking it was on the 28th, and I explained, no, it's the 21st, because in the 28th, it would be too late for the Rockridge News.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for the compliment, Diana.
Oh, it's only tell the truth.
I'm actually feeling a little flattened and frazzled.
Oh, well, like I was telling Stu, I got back early this morning from Connecticut, spending Father's Day with my dad. He's 102. And when you reach that age, you're never sure how much longer you're going to be around. So
you gotta make everyone count.
Yeah. And I'm truly daddy's little girl because I was born on his birthday.
Oh my goodness! I wonder how that arranged that. That must have taken a lot of advanced planning.
Let me see. Something intense. I'm not sure about planning, but Oh,
Anyways, I'm not sure how much we're gonna be able to get accomplished tonight because a number of people basically said they wouldn't be able to make it.
ah,
And it's funny because as I said, it's in the Rockridge News as being tonight, and I actually put it up on the website and on the Facebook page as being tonight,
yeah.
just to make sure. But then I didn't notice that, I didn't realize that it was showing up as the 28th on the email I sent out. So
Ah,
So we don't have a quorum then.
we didn't.
yeah, I'm not,
No, I know we don't have a quorum right now. We have we have 3 of us that are
mhm,
full members, so we don't have a
Yeah.
quorum. So unless, yeah, we could have some informal discussion, but we can't accomplish anything in terms of actually taking action. But the stuff that's on the agenda for the most part was really more informational. It wasn't, I don't think there was anything on there that required action by the committee in terms of making a recommendation to the
Yeah.
board. So we could talk a little bit about things, or we could just sort of put it off until next month.
not up to me.
Your choice. If you want to get a little extra, if you have
I'm
if
just
you've had enough
here to
zooming for the day.
listen and learn. So I'm going to shut up for now.
Okay. So I did
So
send out,
where's,
Hmm?
is it under land use on Slack?
yes, it is under both,
There it is.
but I think it's
Just
got the
found
wrong
it.
link.
Thank you.
It's got the link saying it's the 28th because I didn't realize to change it.
No, I'm talking about the affordable housing.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, that got posted under land use on the Slack channel. And I also sent it out on the email that I sent out, catch the email. But and what it is basically just summarizing the results of the analysis that Darin Smith did, and trying to, because we'd put up the actual, I had put up his analysis on the website, but of course that went along with the presentation he had given I think he gave it to the board as well as to the land use committee. But that presentation without someone to actually give it is kind of hard to follow. So what I wanted to try and do was to just go through the presentation in an article that would lay out what the analysis said. With a take-home lesson being that for most areas in Rockridge, for most pieces of land in Rockridge, it turns out it doesn't really work to try and build something there. That it doesn't pencil out. The only place that would pencil out, at least would pencil out easily, would be the DeVita site, because that has a large parking lot, and so the land value is much lower than for most of the other places where you've got a reasonably good size, particularly on the commercial sites where you've got buildings that go right up to the sidewalk. So your floor, your total building area is pretty much the same as your lot area, and so you're going to have a pretty high valuation.
Remind me again why the
Hmm?
back parking lot at the DMV was left out of the study. I mean, it's state property, but it's barely occupied these days.
Well, because the thing about state property is, as state property, it's public land, and public land has to be used for public uses, and it would have to go first to another public agency, and then secondly, it might be able to go to a nonprofit. But you wouldn't be able to. The state can't sell the land to a private bidder unless it's already been turned down by everybody else.
I'm wondering though, if there's some way to incentivize the state to turn it over to a nonprofit. I mean, they are not, I live right across the street and the lot's only full on farmers market days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know whether they're, if they are going to decide it's underutilized and needs to be gotten rid of, then The other possibility would be to have it go to Oakland. And then Oakland could go ahead and you know, develop it as, or allow it to be developed for say, for example, for affordable housing. You know,
Yeah.
essentially what they did with the dormitory.
Right.
Yeah,
Stu, I thought, first of all, I thought the article that you wrote in the Rockridge News was brilliant. It
you're
was,
talking about the one that was in this last month's
yes,
on land costs. Okay, thank you.
on land costs.
Thank
It
you.
was definitely, no pun intended, on the money, you know,
Yeah.
because it pointed out a lot of things I think that people people don't really think about. They don't think about cost
Mhm.
in the way that you broke it down.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And yeah, I think you broke it down into readable, easily understandable information. And
That was the intent. That was what I was trying
well,
to do.
I was
Make it
very impressed because,
understandable.
like I said, I think it was brilliant.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It was a wonderful piece. So but like Leonora says,
This next one that I just sent out the draft of is not as easy. I have to say, I frankly rushed it out to try and get it out so people would be able to look at it at least a little bit before the meeting. But it's a very rough draft, and in my personal opinion, it needs a lot of work.
well,
It's
you
but there's a little time before the deadline for the Rockridge News, so I can
yeah.
work on it some. If any of you have some time to look at it and want to give me some feedback, please go ahead and send me back some feedback.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I'd be
Particularly if
happy
there are
to.
things that don't seem to make sense, or that you feel like it needs to be phrased differently.
Mhm. Okay, I'd be happy to. Going back to what Leonora was talking about with the DMV parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, knowing, Leonora, that you live across the street and from it, you're right. The only time it's really full is when the market is there, the open market is there, and in the meantime too. You know what I'm wondering about? You know that building that used to be, or that space that used to be the old Safeway there,
That's
and
the Vita.
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, that
What
is the one. That is the one.
why is there a hang up about building there? Does it belong to the city? Does it belong to the state?
Belongs to a private owner.
Private owner who rents it to DeVita.
Ah,
Now,
okay.
they might be persuaded
Mhm.
to let the land use be to sell the land to a developer,
Mhm.
either a for-profit or non-profit developer. But
Okay.
the last I had heard, they apparently they are perfectly content to just let it stay with DeVita. But that was,
Okay.
and I have to say that was like secondhand or third hand that I heard that they weren't
Okay.
interested in doing anything different with that land.
Oh, okay. It's
You're
not the
right, but
same circumstance.
that is the one piece of land that based on its evaluation in terms of its assessment would be doing some housing they would pencil out, and that was one of the things that
That's it.
in the analysis that
Mhm.
because Darin Smith looked at that property and did the analysis, and that was the one property that did pencil out in terms of being able to build on it.
Okay.
I think he said a 5-story building there with, and I don't remember the exact number of apartments or condos, whichever was. I think he did it as apartments, but the 5-story building would pencil out.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but
And I'm sorry, Hugh, how did he determine the expected land cost for that, or property cost for that?
based on the land valuation, I don't know whether it maybe was from the last time it was sold or I don't know. What did he say? Let me see if
I guess I'm just a little surprised because I heard that there's like a multi-unit property almost directly across the street from it, across from Aline's coffee shop, and it's been under construction in a sort of in a incomplete state for quite a while. And the seller is now asking, I think, like 2.6 or $3 million for incomplete units that are maybe an eighth of the size of the DeVita lot. So I just,
Well, you know,
Yeah.
part of it is to see that property has not been sold many times. That property has, you know, that was at one point a Safeway quite a while ago.
You're right.
And then it was vacant for a long time. And then after the, I think it was after the fire, or maybe it was after the no, it was after the earthquake.
Earthquake.
The city took it over and used it for people to get assistance.
Mhm.
And it stayed with the city for quite a while. I don't know exactly when the city finally sold it, but it's been DeVita for what, 20 years? Leonore, you probably would be the best one to know how long it's been DeVita.
Well, I moved back here 17 years ago. Yeah, 17 years ago.
Was it
And
DeVita then? Do you
it hadn't been DeVita for very long,
but it was.
but
So
it was
it's been,
DeVita then.
yeah, so it's been at least 17 years since the last time it was
15.
sold. And it is, in terms of the building and the amount of parking, it's really underutilized.
Mhm. Very much so.
It's got just a one tilt-up building and a bunch of parking, surface parking. So that if someone was going to do an appraisal of it, it would probably not appraise it very much. You know, I think he had come up with a cost of 4 or 5 million per acre. I believe it's a 2.5 acre site. So 4 million, let's say 4 million per acre, that's 10 million altogether for that large site. And in the rest of Rockridge, it would be 11 million for a single acre. For the most part.
Are you sure it's that big, Stu?
I'm pretty sure that's what I can remember him saying. Well, actually, let me see. I'm gonna have to see if I can pull up that the PDF of his presentation. Just a second. I was just looking at it earlier today.
2 acres.
Here we go. Actually, I could let me just. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, let me just share this screen. So there's estimated value, and you can see the value, and that was based on asking price for all property except the rug store and DeVita. That used average supermarket value for a building of that square footage. So in other words, submarket value for a building of that square footage. So it just assumed with a single story commercial building with that size parking lot, that's what came up with the valuation.
That's only an acre and 2/3.
Oh, you're right. 1.7. Yeah, you're right. So it's not that big. But if you look at the valuation, though, it's much lower than any of these others.
Yeah, 4 million, well, let's round it off, 4.2 million.
Yeah, 4.2 million per acre.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's not very much.
No, for the residential properties in Rockridge, it's more like 11 million or more.
Mm-hmm. You know what I've been looking at for some, well, yeah, we've been getting a lot of the little postcards from realtors selling homes, and just on our block here on Shafter Avenue, you know, a house, a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath,
Mhm.
single-story home was put up for sale,
Mhm.
asking 1.439. Okay, they got another 495,000
Yeah, people are getting
above
well
asking
above
for it.
asking price.
Yeah,
There are places that are going for 300,000 or 400,000 above the asking price
yes,
in Rockridge. Yeah,
right.
I kind of follow that on what's it, Redfin,
Redfin, yeah.
and so I keep an eye on it. And generally, the value, basically the prices are going at something like $1,000 per square foot,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty damn high.
Yeah.
It's about twice the valuation for places in other parts of Oakland.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that reflects the land value. Is that it, because obviously the cost of building in West Oakland is not that different from the cost of building in Rockridge.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference in the valuation is the land cost.
One difference though, the lots here, I don't know, I'm not sure what the average sized lot is in West Oakland, but the lots here, I mean, just taking in, knowing my block,
Yeah.
3-4 blocks over and up, whatever, around the area, 12-block radius, okay? The lots are not big. They're
No,
not large lots.
They're 4,000 to 5,000 square feet usually.
Yeah.
The
And,
average size. So 11 or 12, 10 or 11 rather, 10 or 11 units per acre.
yeah.
And in the suburbs, that would be considered high density.
Yeah.
If you went out to Walnut Creek, you would not find very many places where they'd have that many parcels. They usually, in places like Walnut Creek, it's more like 4 per acre.
Mm.
But West Oakland would be pretty similar to ours. They're most of the older parts of Oakland, that was about what the average lot size would have tended to be when a lot of the older parts of Oakland were built up, which was about 4,000, 5,000 square feet. So the sizes of the lots, say for example, comparing West Oakland to here, would be pretty similar. But if you look at the land values now West Oakland nowadays, the land values are starting to go up a lot in West Oakland.
Yeah.
But they're still a lot lower than Rockridge. I think I've seen some places up for sale in West Oakland for somewhere in the range of about 500,000 or so for the same size houses you would find for $1 million or $1.5 million here.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name's Mark Martin. It's the first time I've been to this. Just trying to learn a little bit about it.
Sure. Welcome.
The land use committee makes recommendations to whom?
To the board of
To
directors.
the board, who then they make recommendations to the city, or the city
They
talks to
can,
them?
if they want to, they can make
want
recommendations to the city, or either basically saying that they oppose something or they're okay with something. That's the usual way it goes. RCPC usually doesn't actually support something. It will either say that's okay, we're okay with it, or we're not okay with it, or maybe we're not okay. We'd be okay with it if. I couldn't hear what you said. Sorry, my watch is just talking to me. But the board will, depending, it's a lot of times it will be on development issues, development projects,
Right.
and the board will decide either they are okay with that project or they're not okay with that project, or if you did this or didn't do that, then we might be okay with the project. We're not okay with it as it is, but we would be okay with it if you changed it some.
And the last Rockridge News mentioned a spreadsheet that had looked at the kind of the land costs and construction costs. Is that something that's available to show to people, or you're just using that
Well,
to?
this, this has some of the results. This one was done by Darin Smith, who's a housing consultant. And actually has done some work for the city. And he donated some time to do this analysis that is in this presentation. That analysis will be going up on the rockridge.org website. It was on the old website, then the old website crashed. And so we now have a new website, so it needs to get put back up onto the new website.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not the actual spreadsheet or calculations. It's the results of applying those calculations. And I suppose you could try and do some reverse engineering to figure out how the equations actually worked, what algorithm was used to get the values that he presents here. But my understanding is that he has got a lot of proprietary information in his spreadsheet and probably a lot of variables. So I don't know how easy it would be
Okay.
to get that. There are several people on the committee that are trying to work up a similar type of spreadsheet to do that sort of analysis. And
Got it.
unfortunately, they aren't here tonight. I was hoping they might be able to present where that work is standing. The last meeting, they had said that they had some work done on it, but they hadn't tested it against any, like, for example, any of the results that Darin Smith did to see whether it gives similar results. So it hasn't been valid. Their analysis hasn't been validated against anything
Okay.
else.
Well, it was the statement that no projects would pencil out in Rockridge that really caught my eye. So
Yeah, again, if actually I can show you. Let me go
I
back.
mean, yeah, it all depends on height.
So this is showing. This is looking at multi-fit, taking a parcel. So this is looking at a half-acre parcel, and then developing at varying density and figuring out how does that compare to the prices that people would actually charge. And the answer is, as it said here, it has a premium 35%, 19%, or 12% premium over what would be the normal market rates
in Oakland or in
yeah,
the Bay Area.
in the East Bay.
In the
So
East Bay.
essentially what it's saying is it would be really tough for a developer to make money on doing any of these projects.
Right.
They would just, so they look at that and say, why would I do that? I'll go someplace where the land cost is cheaper. Because here you can see the land cost for a half acre is $5.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
And when you calculate that in and then take everything else into account, that's a big cost.
And the 50 DU, what does that refer to? The height?
Well, where is that 50 D?
At the top.
Oh, that's
One says 35.
50 units per acre or 60 units per acre.
Okay.
And this is just with the current 35-foot height limit.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be 36 units per acre.
Okay.
Basically the maximum you can squeeze in at with the 35-foot height limit.
I mean, because
these two options, we're assuming you could go higher.
Okay. I mean, my overall view is that we need more housing and such. I'm a little concerned about the 4 units per lot. And I don't know, and I could be convinced that will work. So I'm trying to learn more, and that's why I'm here. And continuing on.
I mean, they basically what this analysis says is that it's building in Rockridge is challenging. And one of the things we're still working on is figuring out, are there any ways that we could make it less challenging? Are there ways we could offer incentives? Are there ways that we could sort of fiddle with things to make something that would work?
Well, it's got to be density though, right? I mean, so I don't know what the current
not
state
necessarily.
is
Not
the
necessarily.
CCA. Okay.
For CCA, you have a special situation there because that doesn't necessarily have, I mean, the height limits or whatever the city decides will be the height limits. The density limits will be whatever the city decides the density limits. It's not like the rest of Rockridge that where the density is set by the zoning. The zoning is going to have to be changed because right now the zoning is institutional because it was a school. And so it's obviously not, it's not staying a school, so it's going to have different zoning regardless of what they put there. So that and the land cost, the only thing, what we don't know, in fact, in the land cost is how much the developers have agreed to pay to CCA in order to build there. What they've done is that they've given the developers an option. And if the developers are successful in getting something approved, they will pay CCA off for whatever the cost that CCA is charging them or proposing to charge them. Now, what we were told, I don't know if did you ever go into any of the presentations about the CCA project?
I didn't, I wouldn't, yeah.
Okay, so what they said in those presentations is that essentially all of the various options they looked at don't pencil out. And they were pretty candid about providing a lot of their figures of what everything was going to cost them and how much it was going to be building and so forth. The whole thing looked, you know, they showed all of the data that they were going to be using. And the answer that came back was, at the current time, we can't build it.
Yeah.
Even with what was the maximum height they were talking about?
Even with,
17
they had talked about putting a 19-story building, and even a 19-story building doesn't pencil out.
Doesn't
because just that when you get to the building like that, the cost of per square foot goes up.
That's right. Anything
Yeah.
above 5 stories, the cost goes up quite a bit. And when you get up to 19 stories, it can pencil out depending on the land cost. So
Right.
my suspicion is that CCA is not selling them that land for cheap.
Okay.
Not at all.
And consequently, they've got to recover the cost for that purchase. And that's, you know, essentially what they're saying is, as well, with what CCA wants us to pay for the land, we can't afford to build on it.
So have they purchased it then or
No,
not?
that's what I'm saying. They have an
Okay.
option.
They have an option. Okay, got it.
So in other words, if they are successful in getting a development approved, then they will go ahead and buy the land from CCA. But if they're unsuccessful, or if they can't make it pencil out, then they won't move forward.
Got it.
And it'll end up staying as CCA's land,
Mhm.
at least for the time being.
And what else would you do with that land? Is there something else that they could conceivably?
Well, I don't know.
They're
They're doing an EIR right now, and one of the things an EIR includes is alternatives. So the EIR has got to look at various things you could do with that land and evaluate whether they would work or not. But they won't do the economic analysis. The city won't do that. They'll just look at what sort of impacts would it have in terms of the environmental impacts. Because an environmental impact report is about the environment, it's not about economy.
Okay.
So they
May
can
I
tell you-
interject just a little
Sure.
bit about the CCA site? Art Gensler, who passed away recently, was on the board for CCA. He was instrumental in taking CCA out of Oakland and moving it into San Francisco. And now that Art has left, yeah, he's no longer with us. It's a little bit up in the air as to what's going to happen with the CCA site, because he was very, very, very much instrumental on the board of CCA to
move it to San Francisco.
Yeah, and he moved it. Yeah. He made sure that they moved it to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Out of Oakland.
Yeah.
And so it's the situation right now is a little bit, like I said, it's up in the air.
Yeah. Well, it's also up in the air because of the pandemic.
Right. Also because of pandemic and the cost of materials.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of materials has shot way up.
Yeah.
And also too, there's a shortage of workers, skilled workers.
Yeah.
To build it. And
right now, even if the city were to approve the project tomorrow, it probably wouldn't get built, at least not for several years.
it wouldn't get built for probably 3 to 5 years.
It all
That was the
depends
estimate.
on that, you know, basically whatever's going to happen the next few years in terms of the economy.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they initially were talking about having it partially commercial and partially residential, and they dropped the
Right.
commercial because they said, you know, that's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's probably even more true now. The rents that people are getting for office buildings have dropped quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's hard to know. I mean, I think we're in a period right now where there's big question marks.
Mhm.
I have a couple more questions, but I don't want to.
Well, does anyone else?
If anybody
You know,
else
and
has,
I guess
something.
one of the things I just want to check on is whether there's anything else that people want to talk about beyond just where we've been doing right now. I did want to mention the results of what happened at the board meeting in terms, because we had talked at the land use committee meeting a couple of months ago about what's going to be happening with the Safeway site at Broadway and Pleasant Valley. And the board decided that we should basically send a letter to the city and to the developer and potentially to the property owner saying we would like to open a dialogue with you folks about what's going to happen with this site, because we are concerned about it just sort of sitting vacant. And we'd like to get some discussion about what can go there and you know, let's make something happen here. And one of the major options there is to say, can we get this developed as residential? But again, the problem may be that at the moment, it may be that nothing pencils out on that site. You know, right now, the only type of residential that's really going through the roof is single family homes.
So in the Rockridge news, it mentioned that TRC is the master tenant.
Right.
So they basically manage the property.
That's correct.
And then the owner says they don't want residential because it's not going to make them enough money, I guess.
Well,
that would
it's
be
not clear what the reason
Okay.
why the owners don't want residential. What they have said in the past, and this was way back in around like 2013, was that the owners said, we don't want to lock in some type of development. We want to have the next generation because it's a family corporation, and we want to have the next generation be able to have the flexibility and freedom to decide what they want to do with this site. And if you put down residential, that locks things down for probably 50 years. Whereas if you put up commercial, usually unless you build a big office building is pretty much the same lifetime. But if you put up some sort of a tilt up building for a retail or any other type of single floor use or even 2-floor use, those are easy to knock down and do something different.
And thus why the idea of putting a car dealership there would be very easy to move.
Yeah.
It's basically a parking lot.
Right. Car dealership is easy. Drive-through fast food is easy. Even big box is easy because it's a box.
Yeah.
So those things are easy to put up and easy to take down and put something else up. Whereas you put up residential and it's there for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's
Also, the thing,
yeah.
the thing with residential is if you put up residential and then, you know, maybe 10 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, you decide it's not bringing in enough, you know, the owner says it's not bringing in enough, you know, capital for us. It's going to be it would be extremely hard to, you know, to tear that down simply because being residential, it has residents, it has people living there.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you know,
could, in
the
theory,
whole idea behind building residential is to find housing or provide housing for people.
Yeah. I mean,
And
in theory with rental housing, because under the Costa-Hawkins law, new housing built since 1996 cannot be under rent control. So
Right.
in theory, if you built, let's say a 5-story residential rental unit building, in 10 years, you could say, all right, we're going to evict all of you, and or at least we're not going to allow you to renew your leases, and we're going to empty the building out and tear it down. But that would be very politically unacceptable.
Yeah.
The city would probably go on a warpath
Mhm.
against someone.
Well, and we've also seen cities, including Berkeley and Oakland, change the rules on that, whether duplex are exempted or triplexes, owner occupied are exempted. And so there's already evidence that things change all the time. So that's a
Well,
risk.
the thing about Costa-Hawkins is state law, so you can't override that.
Mm.
A municipality cannot put in rent control any place where it would be contrary to what Costa-Hawkins says.
Mhm.
So even in Berkeley, they don't have rent control on buildings built after 1996 because they can't.
Right.
Anyways, so that's, yeah, I think that may well be what's behind it. And they've never said it explicitly, but I think that's probably a large part of it. And the question is, can you get them to change their mind? And we don't know, but that was what the board wanted to do, was to see, can we change their mind?
Can they put in an auto dealership there now, or does it need to be rezoned?
It's a pretty open-ended zoning.
Okay,
I think an auto, I'm not even sure that the auto dealership would even need anything like a use permit. Given, because that land was designated as being a sort of a commercial center for this area. So they wanted to encourage people to come in there and do big things.
Mhm.
And so they wanted to
Okay.
make it easy to do something big.
Mhm.
Okay.
Of course, an auto dealership is pretty big.
Yeah.
The square footage.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so along the lines of this is slightly different, but it may, I don't know if the land use committee, that street next to that empty lot that goes to Safeway off of Broadway.
Yeah.
There is not a sidewalk on one side.
Right.
And people are walking down the bike lane, which I understand. I don't understand why they didn't require a sidewalk there. I assume that would have eaten into, I don't know why.
I don't understand
Is
it.
that?
I'm not sure. I think that's a private street. I don't think that's the city of Oakland street. In other words, I think
I
that's
ran
all
through the old
local.
property,
So
right?
consequently, the
Yeah.
city can't enforce what would be normally its standards for a public street.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah. Well, it seems
You
like
know,
it would, because it's danger. I mean, people are going to continue to walk that, and that's just human nature. And so, yeah. Okay.
Well, I've seen, luckily that street doesn't get a huge amount of traffic, because I've seen bicyclists going along the bicycle lane, and there's, as you say, people walking in the bicycle lane, and they just swerve around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's.
And if it got a lot of traffic, that could be dangerous. But so far it hasn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then again, I have one more question that's kind of a 101 land use thing, but I don't want to say if anybody else has got something they're going to bring up or. So.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing none. When you say affordable housing, I know that's subsidized. And does that mean it's got to be a rental property and continue to be a rental property?
No.
I assume, because if somebody bought it, they could flip it, and so.
No, because there are deed restrictions. When they talk about affordable housing, and there's different kinds of affordable housing, but for example, there's a state density bonus law, which allows you to get additional density in return for building some affordable units. And those can be either rental units, or it can be for sale. It can be what's called common interest development, where you have, say, condominiums that are sold.
And with the rental, there's probably some sort of cap based on median income.
That's right.
And then how does the deed restriction keep it if they sell it? It's like recorded. You can only increase so much a year.
That's exactly. It's recorded on the deed. And that puts limits on as to how much it can sell for. And those, and if you went to buy that property, they would tell you, I'm sorry, but you can't, for example, if it's has a deed restriction, say, for example, that it's going to be only for people of this sort of income, then it'll be priced accordingly. And you might say, oh, I'd like to get that. That's cheap. But they'll say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify to buy this.
Yeah, and that,
Right.
that's
Has to be
in
below
perpetuity.
for you to be
It's
able,
in perpetuity or for so, I don't know how long.
50
Okay.
years usually.
50 years. Okay.
50 years. That's what the general state law is, 50 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
Mark,
There,
may I ask you
I
a
should
quick question?
add, say that, just a second, there's one thing I should add there.
I'm sorry.
Which is, that's certainly true in terms of purchase. If, in other words, you're going to have to comply with the deed restriction, and they probably wouldn't even let the sale go through if you were violating the deed restriction. But
Yeah.
with rental property, the question is who keeps track of the incomes of the people who move in?
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good question.
Mhm.
I've heard rumors that in some cases, in fact, someone was telling me just recently that there's a building down on Telegraph at 51st, that new building that went up, which is
Yeah.
going to be a grocery store on the first floor.
Mhm.
And someone was telling me that someone went in there
Logan.
and asked about
Yeah.
purchasing one of the affordable units, and the people in the rental office didn't know what they were talking about.
You froze up.
Yeah, you're frozen.
Am I frozen now? Still not? Yes, yes. Or am I back to normal?
Yeah, you're still a little frozen.
Uh-oh.
You
Let
might
me
need to turn
check
off
with
your
my-
video.
Maybe that will work
unfortunately.
better.
Turning off video
Okay.
helps.
Okay, so now can you hear me now? No? Yes? Okay. So what I was saying is it's
Okay.
not
All
clear.
right. Well,
It's
thank,
not clear when someone goes in to rent one of those, whether anyone's checking to make sure that they're qualifying.
right. Okay.
That's sort of
Alright.
the one problem with all of these recorded deeds is the deed restriction. If no one checks the deed restriction, then they can just pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else
Appreciate
have anything? I think we might as well just call a meeting adjourned if there's nothing else to be, because we don't have a quorum. And
Mm-mm.
as I said, the items that were on here were really informational rather than anything that required action by the committee. So if no one has anything else that they want to bring up, we'll call it adjourned. Thank you all for coming. And I apologize for the problems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Yeah.
Steve.
Good night.
Good night.